have is Coalition Z. Coalition Z is a national youth-led organization focused on bridging the gap between Generation Z and the government. They lead multiple initiatives and actions throughout the United States that help get those who are not necessarily old enough to vote yet get involved with politics. They seek to build up a generation of politically engaged citizens who care about their country and the lives of those living in it. Here's a representative from Coalition Z to share more about their organization.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucia, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Media and Publicity Director for the organization Coalition Z. We are a national, completely youth-led organization dedicated to creating concrete political change by bridging the gap between Gen Z and our government. We currently have 20 chapters across 6 different states, and 11 of those are in New York City because this is where we're based. We want to connect young people to every level of civics, from our city council to our federal government. We also seek to reflect young people's goals, and we're able to do that because everyone in our organization is young. Everyone from our executive directors to our chapter leaders to our members are members of Generation Z. Our work encompasses 5 goals: supporting legislation that focuses on issues that impact our generation, electing progressive candidates at all levels of government, connecting young people with their representatives, representing Generation Z's values to shape legislation with elected officials, and informing our generation on the policies that affect us and our future. We recognize that an equitable and representative government includes all future voters in the democratic process before they are given the ballot. And so that brings us to the main issue at hand: youth voting. Turnout for youth voters falls behind that of older voters, but can you guys guess by how much? The data actually shows that the turnout amongst youth voters is anywhere between 20 to 30 percentage points below that of older voters. So obviously we know that the 18 to 29-year-old demographic has a problem turning up at the polls. And why is that? Well, a lot of people like to say that it's because young people aren't passionate and interested in politics. But if you had to guess off the top of your head, what percentage of youth would you say were interested in politics? So the answer is 90%. So that is obviously a very high amount, and Generation Z is obviously very interested in getting involved with politics. But there are many reasons why the youth feel overwhelmed with the voting process and aren't encouraged to vote. But one of the biggest issues is that many youth just aren't registering to vote. In the past, there haven't been many initiatives to register teen voters. For example, only 6% of people said that they were asked to register to vote by their schools or in a class. The youth just aren't being registered. So why is this so significant? Obviously, if the youth aren't voting, their interests will not be represented in our government. And when 18 to 29-year-olds are registered to vote, they are statistically more likely to actually vote as compared to other demographics. Additionally, if you're not registered to vote, you're less likely to engage in politics in different ways, such as working to solve problems in your communities or donating money to campaigns you support. And finally, when young people are encouraged to vote in their first eligible elections, the data shows that they tend to become lifetime voters. So by encouraging the youth to get registered and vote as soon as they can, you're getting an entire generation of passionate and involved lifetime voters. At Coalition Z, we're really looking to achieve that and bridge the gap between Gen Z and voting and their government, which is a gap that can seem really big and daunting to many young people. Some ways we have done this is by organizing Coalition Z contingencies as protests such as the March for Our Lives or Fridays for Future that we feel represent the youth's interests. We have also organized events for youth to meet their representatives and ask them questions. We have canvassed for candidates that we feel support progressive policies. We have paired interested students with campaigns they can work on. We have phone banked for legislation we support. We teach our chapters and members how to organize student voter registration drives at their schools and within their communities. And 2 years ago, as an organization, we went with the other organization, NYC Votes, to Albany to lobby for the expansive voting rights reforms that were enacted this January, which included things such as pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds. Our mission is to get young people actively engaged and involved with the civics around them, including through voting. We emphasize concrete actions that you can take to enact the change that you want. So what can you do? Right after this webinar portion ends, you can look into pre-registering to vote online, or registering if you're 18 years old. When you're able to go back to school, you can ask your administration to let you run a student voter registration drive on school grounds. You can also get engaged in different ways, such as phone banking for legislation you support. Our organization will be running a workshop this afternoon on how to phone bank today at 4 o'clock, including a mini experience where you will actually get the opportunity to phone bank. Coalition Z, we have a few toolkits for New York City, but there are a lot of different scripts out there for a lot of different policies that you can find on issues that you support. And finally, you can get involved with any of the organizations that are speaking today, including ours. To take the next step with us, you can see if we have a chapter already at your school, and if not, you can start one or incorporate a pre-existing club into one. You can visit our website and Linktree for resources and information. And of course, contact us or follow our socials for updates and info on any initiatives and events we have going on. Thank you to all the attendees and to NYCYCI, and make sure to stay tuned for our workshop at 4 o'clock.
So I think I'm going to start with one that was that Lucia asked to answer. For Coalition Z, do you guys have specific programs to turn the politically interested members of Generation Z into actual votes?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on this in my presentation, but one of our biggest initiatives is registering students to vote. We really encourage all of our chapters to host student voter registration drives. We provide the training and the information so that students that are members of our organization feel comfortable hosting these drives. And we really just encourage getting as many students registered and pre-registered here in New York City where that's available. We also really prioritize like informing our members, and through our social media channels, we prioritize informing the youth on like why voting matters, why their vote matters, why it's important and exciting to get engaged in civics and specifically through voting. So that's like two of the biggest ways that we promote that within our organization. And then obviously to all our members, we always we provide like to our chapters, we provide like specific talking points and agendas, and a lot of those are focused like how can we get our teachers to discuss registration, how can we like speak about this in our classrooms, how can we speak about this to like our friends. So it's just like within our organization, we really have a culture of that your vote as a young person really matters, and getting people registered, getting people excited about voting. So I hope that answers your question. I guess I can start. But for me personally, I got involved with advocacy, and activism around like 2.5 years ago. So it was right around like the Parkland shooting. That was I did like the walkout, and I attended like the March for Our Lives. So that was like really one of my first like experiences, like going to like protests and really getting involved. And then this was in my presentation, but I went with the organization Coalition Z before I was a member of it to lobby in Albany for voting rights. And I started reading up on voting rights, what the problems were within our like state and within New York, and why they were so important. And that just really, like doing that research on my own and actually going and like being able to like lobby and feeling like I made a change for that really like encouraged me. It made me realize that these were issues that I really cared about, and it encouraged me to know that like I could very comfortably and like participate within like civics and within like our government, and that it was something that I was excited to do, and that made me realize I could really make a change like through Coalition Z and just in general.
Resist has made a great basics for phone banking. So this explains it pretty nicely. But what phone banking really is calling with the message and personalizing this message as much as you can, especially when you email, is very important because it gets people to listen. So then a staffer on the campaign will listen to this, which goes up to senior leadership, and then finally to the senator or representative who will be representing your opinion. And this is generally either the person who you're a direct constituent of, the representative, say you're in their district, or someone who has control over this bill, who you are asking to pass, say it's in a different committee, you will call members of this committee and tell them to advocate for the bill. Yeah, so that's pretty much basically what phone banking is. So when you're phone banking, make sure you really know what it is and make sure you truly support it, because there are oftentimes like a lot of nuances of each bill, but understand the goal of the bill and understand, but a lot of like who you're calling doesn't truly matter in the end. Just making sure that it's the person who will have some sort of jurisdiction over this bill. Lucia, do you want to go into what the Earn It Act really is?
Yeah, great. So I will drop the link. I just dropped the link to our toolkit in the chat. That should be accessible to everyone. So everyone, if you want to open it up yourself and follow along, that's great. So the Earn It Act is an act that was created basically with the intention to protect children from online sexual exploitation. But in reality, in practice, the bill actually undermines internet privacy, and a lot of people have said that it will actually hurt child abuse investigations. So under the bill, internet companies have to earn something called Section 230 protections, which prevent them from being held liable for speech on their platforms. And to earn these protections, they have to follow a bunch of guidelines, which in practice basically will effectively ban end-to-end encryption. So that does raise some serious questions about constitutionality because, for example, there's the Leahy Amendment, which prevents the banning of end-to-end encryption. But one of the biggest issues with the banning of end-to-end encryption is a concern that it will actually end up putting children in more danger because their sensitive information will be exposed and it can be stolen and eavesdropped on by malicious attackers. So there is obviously like a lot of people saying that the Earn It Act was actually going to do more harm than good. So Senator Wyden, who is a Democrat from Oregon, is arguing that the Earn It Act is actually a distraction from the Justice Department's lack of funding and resources to handle online child exploitation. So in May, he introduced something called the Invest in Child Safety Act, which is a counter to the Earn It Act that directly invests $5 billion in funding for investigations against child sexual abuse and creates a White House office to coordinate those efforts across government agencies. So it basically has the same intention as the Earn It Act without like the harmful repercussions that the act has. So the reason why we chose this is because about a week ago, it was passed out of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which means that it's going to be brought to a vote in the Senate soon. So it's more critical than ever that we keep our legislators from passing it. So if you look at our toolkit, we have provided scripts for everything, as well as the numbers and contact information for Senate leadership, including the majority and minority leaders and the majority and minority whips. So yeah, so Durga has the toolkit up and you can also pull it up on your own. And it has a script that you can just call and recite, and all you have to fill in is your name and your location. So you can say, for example, like New York City. And the way that the phone banking will work, if you've never done it, is when you call that number, it will either go to voicemail, in which case you'll just recite the script as is, or your call will be picked up by a staffer, and they usually will just let you recite your script, and then they'll probably answer with something like, "Thank you, we've received this message," and we'll pass it along. And so I think we're actually going to phone bank for like about 15 minutes until maybe like 4:30. So we really encourage everyone to pull up the toolkits and just try to get through as many calls as you can. But if you can't get through all of them, don't worry. This toolkit is up on the website, on NYCYCI's website. So it's accessible to people. You guys can all access it later. And the way that this will work is that type any questions that you have in the chat throughout this call, because everyone's going to be muted so that it's easier and more comfortable for everyone to call. But any questions that you have, just type them in the chat, and Durga and I will answer them during the call. So if you have any questions or concerns while you're phone banking, we'll just be able to answer all of them. Just make sure that your chat is addressed to all panelists and attendees so everyone is able to see it. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat right now and we'll answer them. But otherwise, Durga and I will mute ourselves and we can just go ahead and get started and make a few calls in the time that we have. And we'll let you know when it's time to like wrap up, we'll let you know 5 minutes out so you can begin to wrap up and not take too many calls. And then hopefully we'll still have like 5 minutes at the end where maybe some people can share their experiences and we can just wrap up. So yeah. Okay, that's okay. I saw Kathy sent a chat that said that she got a recording that they were working remotely and would get back to me soon. Yeah, that's most, especially for the DC offices, that's what a lot of them were. The only one from DC that didn't go straight to voicemail for me was for Senator Thune. So yeah, so if you were able to leave a voicemail, that's fine. A staffer will just listen to that and pass the message along. But if not, if you want to call some other day, that's fine too.
Yeah, one thing that's really important in phone banking, which I forgot to mention at the beginning, is that you are able to, when you're all calling at the same time, that really pushes them and it puts a different kind of pressure. So individual calls are extremely important, but when they see that a coalition of people are coming together and doing this, it's also very important. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just wrap up quickly. So this toolkit is available. It's a little bit shorter than some of our usual toolkits, are a little bit longer, but we just wanted to do a small one so that you guys could get like an experience about phone banking if you've never done it before. And this, like I mentioned, this toolkit is available on the NYCYCI website. And yeah, so like Dirk said, coalitions of, if you can get like a group of people, even if it's just your group of friends, to phone bank for an issue at the same time, that's great. It really puts pressure. There are a lot of toolkits and scripts out there that people make that you can find, but you can really try to write one yourself for any issue. It really does not matter. Just if you try to get some facts and just speak honestly, that is really powerful. So this is obviously, this is obviously phone banking to representatives. There's another kind where you phone bank to like people in support of like a specific like representative or like for a campaign. But when you're calling to your representatives, it really puts pressure to let them know that this is what the constituents want, that's what you as a constituent want. You're like speaking for the people, and it really puts pressure that they have to act and support the legislation you want.
Yeah, I'm actually also going to drop in the chat, if this can also be posted on the website, that would be amazing. Here's the NYC phone bank toolkit for Black Lives Matter. So one thing that works really well for phone banking, like we mentioned before, but I just really want to hit this home, is that you can literally just tell your friend, like, hey, join FaceTime with me, and just, you know what, pick up the phone and spend half an hour calling. And if you do this once a week, although it seems like it's not a lot, if every person did that, imagine the huge impact that we'd have. So really knowing that your power as an individual, you have a say in your government, and phone banking is a huge part of that.
Yeah, so this just kind of goes to the main issue of today, that, you know, as someone, as a young person, it is very easy. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be hard to get involved with civics, to make your voice heard. Of course, there's voting, but there's also things such as phone banking that are really concrete ways to let representatives know, and to like let them know that what your voice is, to let them know what issues you care about, and that it, as a representative, it is their job to represent your interests. So yeah, I guess we have all of our socials on the website. I think Jason just said our link tree is up. All of our social medias are up. The link to this toolkit is up. The link to our other toolkits are up. So please use those toolkits. Reach out to us. Follow our social medias to hear about our initiatives, and feel free to contact us with any interests. If you want to start a chapter, that link is also on our link tree. It's on our website. It's really easy to get involved with the organization, and feel free to just reach out to us, to DM us on any social media platform. So thank you to everyone who participated today in the webinar and in the workshop. Yeah, I guess we'll hop off now. And thank you to NYCYCI for this event series.
Yes, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I hope people are inspired to do some phone banking or even create their own toolkits. And any high schoolers who are interested in getting more involved with this kind of work and with politics, please look at our website, coalitionz.org. And yeah, thanks so much. And start a chapter. We'd love to see you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.